What is up, Ravens flock? Huge shout out for your support for the 410 Sports Talk. Chance and Glenn are the best in the business. They're killing it right now. They love talking Raven talk. Make sure you go subscribe to their channel. Let's go Ravens. Big trust.
Welcome in, everybody, to another edition of 410 Sports Talk. James Haskell, along with my co-host Glenn Martin, and we're here tonight to talk about the talk of the town, that is the Baltimore Ravens making the playoffs. But, Glenn, there's been a lot of opinions in regards to the Ravens and the playoffs, and we're here to talk about all of it. So before we get into it, which will be absolutely a spicy conversation, take a second, hit the subscribe button, turn notifications, leave your comments below. We love interacting with you guys. And as always, if you're enjoying the content, hit that like button. But Glenn, like I mentioned, the talk around town has been interesting when it comes to the playoffs, and I'm a bit surprised, right? The Ravens are a 10-win team.
Yep.
We clinched a playoff spot. It is guaranteed we make the playoffs no matter what happens to AFC from here on out with 2 weeks left.
Yeah.
Impressive. But there's been some interesting narratives going on. So let's kind of talk about it.
Yeah. I think that everyone at times can get caught up in, focusing on the deficiencies of your favorite team and the negative parts of your favorite team. I admit I get caught up into it sometimes as well. But, just listen, kind of going on Twitter, going on other social media platforms and listen to the radio on occasion, although that's pretty rare. Nowadays, I've been hearing a lot of negativity surrounding this team, and to the point where it's almost like the attitude is, well, it doesn't matter that we made the playoffs because we're going to lose in the first round anyway. So what does it matter? And man, so I just wanted to take a little bit of time to celebrate some of the good things that's going on with this team and kind of highlight those and go and maybe point out that I think the Ravens have a bit of a better chance than a lot of people are giving them. And again, sometimes I fall victim. I'm the same. I can sometimes get caught up in some of the deficiencies as well. So I'm certainly not saying I'm above all that, but I want to kind of check myself a little bit while I'm doing this. Because there's a lot to celebrate about this team. I mean, Jimmy said it. You clinch a playoff berth. I don't care if it's wild card, whatever, with 2 games left in the AFC is pretty damn impressive. I mean, it's a damn good conference. Really,
we're
every
not talking
year.
about the NFC these days.
Right. I mean, this is definitely a very strong conference. And so I think there's reason to be excited about this team. So, Jimbo, let's get into some reasons. So I'll let you start. You can give one reason that you are optimistic that's getting you feeling good about the remainder of this season.
Yeah, just really quickly, I want to add a little bit of context. It was funny because, we had the opportunity to meet up today, and it was literally the first thing that we said to each other was that we felt like the narrative around town was, you know what, the Ravens should send in their resignation letter to the playoffs and say, NFL, here's our resignation letter to the playoffs because we're going to lose the first round anyway. It doesn't matter. And not only the local media members, I feel like it's been a lot of the fans as well. And so it's really interesting to see how, like you said, how fast you can get caught up at looking at things in a vacuum. But there's one thing that I've mentioned, I think already on the show, that as far as my top thing on the list of positive things going into the playoffs are 4 people that are extremely important to our offense. And that is Lamar Jackson, Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins, and Ronnie Stanley. Those 4 football players have not, and correct me if I'm wrong, but have not played together at the same time one time this season. And if you actually look at it, it's been more than one season. I think it's been over 700 days or something like that since they've been on the field at the same time. Because you think about Ronnie's 2 years, you think about JK, you think about Gus, and then you think about Lamar's intermittent absences at times. It's been a long time. And with what we've already seen from JK and Gus and Ronnie out there, I can only imagine how much more impactful and scary this run attack is going to be, and the offense in general with those 4 out there. I think that's being overlooked, Glenn. So my top thing is that those 4 guys are going to be, we presume, are going to be on the field, going to be healthy, headed into the postseason, and it's got me really excited.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, those 4 guys have shown that they are. I mean, obviously, Mark Andrews has got to be in the group of as far as the essential. I mean, all the guys play a role, but it'll be fun to see with those guys back. I mean, we saw the difference Ronnie made when he came back to the field. JK, I mean, immediate impact. Gus took a couple of weeks, but man, he's looking more and more like the old Gus every week. And then we know what Lamar brings. So yeah, a lot of excitement surrounding those guys being on the field at the same time.
Jimbo, what about you?
I mean, the thing that's got me most hyped is this defense is something special. I mean, it is. I mean, let me just point out some areas, and you tell me if these aren't. I mean, the areas in which the Ravens are good at are all the key areas that you want your defense to be good at, and that's the part that's got me so excited. Right now, the Ravens are third in points allowed. They give up 18.1 points per game. Third, they're second in opponents' third down conversion rate. They allow third down conversions at 32%, Jimbo. Second in the National Football League. I mean, that's pretty impressive. You know, they talk about what you got to do to win games. You want to the first thing most coaches say is you want to stop the run. You want to make a team one-dimensional. Well, they're number 3 against the run. They give up, 87 yards per game. That's pretty darn special as well. Then the other things you want to do if you want to impact the other team's offense is you want to pressure the quarterback. Well, we're 5th in sack rate right now in the league. And then the final thing, I think maybe the thing that's the biggest determining factor in whether a team wins or loses is the turnover differential. Ravens are 3rd in the league in turnovers. So this defense is special in basically every area that you want your team. They're top 5. I think they're top 5 definitely in points, sacks, turnovers, and third down, and they're top 3 in most of those. So, I mean, there's so much reason to be excited when you talk about this defense, and that's half your I mean, a third, I guess 40%. I'll call it 40%. I'll give special teams 20%, 40 for offense. It's 40% of your football team is top 3 in every meaningful category. I think that's reason to be excited, Jimbo.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I couldn't agree with you. I couldn't disagree with you at all on that, Glenn. The defense has just been special. I think that, another topic of conversation is whether or not this defense stacks up against that 2019 defense. And the huge feather in the cap of this year's defense is how they've handled having to be the strongest group of the three groups. Right? You have the offense, defense, special teams, and for the past 6 weeks, month, we'll call it a month. The defense has had to carry the offense. I mean, it just is what it is, right? Right now, especially with Lamar down, it's certainly been the case. The offense is doing the best that they can. While we believe, there's obviously some meat left on the bone there. At the end of the day, the defense had to be the shining star, and that wasn't the case in 19. So going into the playoffs, having that same sense of urgency with a Lamar back, with a strong run game with the two-headed monster we got in the backfield, look out, right? The other one, you mentioned it, but I want to talk about Mark Andrews a little bit. Mark Andrews has, I don't think he's surpassed 100 yards in a long time, but I don't think he's even had a touchdown since week 6. Mark has had some moments this year where he struggled. Certainly him and Tyler Huntley are still working to get on the same page. And I know Mark really wants to be aggressive, and in some of these games we haven't been willing to be. With good reason. I mean, I love his aggression, but I also understand why the offense has been conservative in certain moments. We've seen it from, a little bit of his body language, but Mark, more than anything, has been blaming himself because he's got to get better in moments where in the areas where he can control. And we absolutely cannot expect Mark Andrews to continue to produce the way he's producing. It is so uncharacteristic. It is not who he is. I think when Lamar comes back, no knock on Tyler, but he's not Lamar Jackson. I think Mark absolutely takes off in his production. And so I think that's another huge piece when essentially our number 1 wide receiver is going to be putting up number 1 type numbers again. Right. So, I'm excited about that as well. So that's to me, the second piece that's got me really excited. Anything else comes to mind for you?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's pretty important to have a good kicking game when you're in the playoffs. And the Ravens still with back-to-back blocks in back-to-back weeks. I think it's pretty clear that the Ravens still have the greatest kicker of all time. Even with those kind of blunders the last 2 weeks, I think they'll get those things cleaned up in film and be back to being the best kicking unit in the league. And we often see games come down to field goals, and I'll take our chances if that's the case here in Baltimore. So feeling pretty good about special teams. That's a big part of your team. And then finally, the last thing I want to talk about is if the playoffs were to end today, Jimbo.
Start today?
Yeah, or start today. If the season were to end today, playoffs start today. It's interesting because the Ravens are in the 5th seed at 10-5. Jacksonville is in the 4th seed at 7-8. They would host the playoff game. The Baltimore would go into Jacksonville and take on the Jags. I think it's interesting because if you look at the fan base and the level of excitement surrounding the Jacksonville Jaguars right now at 7-8, currently in a losing record, it's so much different than where Baltimore is feeling at 10-5. But
that is so true, right? Like, it's just crazy to think about.
It's weird, but let's remember that the Ravens, while they did play Jacksonville early this year in Jacksonville and they did lose, they were leading for the vast majority of that game. And in fact, they scored a touchdown with 2 minutes and 2 seconds left. It put them up 27-20, and it took a 10-play, 75-yard drive from Jacksonville and a 2-point conversion with 14 seconds left to beat them. So I got to imagine at that point, they didn't have, I mean, there was a lot of players still missing at that point, and it took a 2-point conversion with 14 seconds left to beat us. I like our chances if that were the first round matchup. I mean, I'm not scared to go into Jacksonville and see the Ravens take on the Jags when they're going to be a lot healthier than they were at that point. And I think they would beat the Jags in Jacksonville.
Yeah. How many Ravens fans do you think are going to show up there? Not that Jacksonville doesn't have the most loyal fans in the world, but
no, they don't. It's fair to say.
Yeah. You know what I mean? There's a chance that could turn into M&T Bank South that week. So, yeah, I mean, 100%. I'm with you there. That's not a proposition that makes me nervous.
No,
and it makes me excited. So
they're a losing football team right now.
Right. End of story. I mean, it just is what it is.
I mean, they're on a run. They're playing well. Yeah, they're on a run. They're playing well. But do I think the Ravens can beat them? Heck yeah, they can beat them.
I mean, all they really are. Well, yeah, they're playing well right now. But if you think about everybody in their division is just a bunch of limp,
they're horrible.
Yeah, exactly. They're just not good, right? Like, they're just picking off weak prey at this point.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It's not fair game. But the other thing, you mentioned that as well. But the other thing that's got me really excited is, and especially if we stay in the wild card spot, Glenn, correct me if I'm wrong, doesn't John Harbaugh have the most road victories in the NFL in the playoffs? So look, say what you guys want about John Harbaugh, about his loyalty to his coaching staff, about, he doesn't call plays, whatever. But playing John Harbaugh in a win or go home scenario is not an easy out. Mm-mm. He will over prepare. He will over strategize. I bet you John Harbaugh would be really good at daily fantasy.
Well, he certainly spent a lot of time investing in it. That's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, that's kind of how he's been playing. It's been a weekly thing for him at this point with the guys moving around and health and things like that. So, the proposition of John going into now, Doug Peterson is a seasoned coach. He's a Super Bowl winning coach, but whether it's Doug Peterson, whether it's Zach Taylor, I don't care who it is. I think that John has a really good shot to outcoach his opponent. And I think I can't think of a single scenario where the other team's coach is an advantage.
Well, Kansas City, you could
fair. Okay, so there's one.
But that would be the list.
Is there another one that exists in your mind?
I mean, I think that there's going to be fans that like Doug Peterson, considering he won a Super Bowl also, and he's got an offensive mind. Sure. So I think there's but I think your point is valid. The Ravens right now are set to go on the road for the entirety of the playoffs. Well, who would you rather have as your coach than the greatest road winning playoff coach in history in John Harbaugh? So I think that's really the point, is that the road they're scheduled to go down, they have the best guy leading them down that road. And I think that's an awesome point, Jimbo.
Yeah, man. I mean, I just think that there's so much to look forward. There's so much to look forward to. There's no way that, it's worth the proverbial resignation letter. Look, let us remind you all, for any of you that are newer Ravens fans, Glenn, how did we get in that first year we won a Super Bowl?
That would be the wild card.
Yeah, I mean, look, and then think about what happens in the playoffs when teams go in the playoffs. Glenn, did you ever, how much money would you have lost if somebody bet you that Joe Flacco would outduel Andrew Luck, then he would outduel Peyton Manning, then Tom Brady, then a red hot Colin Kaepernick, and throw no interceptions in that entire run?
It's incredible.
We don't know what can happen. Like, it's a 1-0. It's a win or lose proposition, and anything can happen. So I just struggle with the negativity around it. There's so much that can happen. There's crazier things that happen. And look,
listen, every team's got warts.
Yep. Every team's
team
got
can
warts.
be beaten.
Yeah. And this is the other thing too, for anyone who's thinking negatively, I don't think it's fair that you can think negatively and be the biggest believer in Lamar Jackson. Because if Lamar is who you think he is, the impact of him returning has to be profound based on that same logic. So that means we are going to be a competitive football team. That's what I believe.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, I mean, a lot of that could depend on that knee, the health of that knee. But with all we can go off is what we heard from John Harbaugh on Monday, and they're anticipating him practicing and at least trying it out this week. So, yeah, I mean, I think everybody's optimistic that he'll be back when it matters most. But yeah, sitting at 10-5, locked up a playoff spot, division still has a very real opportunity. I mean, look, the Bengals have to take on the Bills next week. If the if the Ravens take care of business and beat the Steelers and the Bills beat the Bengals, then that Week 18 game is going to be for all the marbles, and it could decide whether the Ravens are going right back to Cincy the following week or if they're hosting a playoff game. If they win the division, it's likely that they'll take on, I mean, I'm trying to think of who it would be. It would either be Cincinnati or likely the Chargers. Already beat the Bengals earlier this year, beat them pretty soundly. Let's see. We beat them 19-17, but it didn't feel that close.
It didn't because
victory.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, like we had them. So I have all the confidence in the world that the Ravens are going to have just as good a shot at making noise in the playoffs as any of these teams will, especially if you give them a home playoff game to start.
100%. 100%. I'm so looking forward to it. I can't wait for the postseason. I can't wait for the Ravens shot and turn some heads, prove some people wrong. Let us know what your guys' thoughts are. If you're feeling negative about it, hopefully we helped turn the mood for you a little bit, gave you something to be positive about. Remember, all those things we kind of talked about. Just to lay it out quickly, we talked about the health, talked about the defense, talked about Mark, we talked about the special teams, talked about coaching. So many positives there. Let us know what your thoughts are. Leave all your comments below, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
Yesterday does not matter. You're looking forward to today.
I'm looking forward to being a Raven.
What are they getting?
Everything out of me. They're going to get a Super Bowl out of me. Believe that.